John Murphy, MRTech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on December the 30th in the year of our Lord 2025, and I hope you have a happy new year coming up for you. But in the meantime, I've got some great information for you. Let me just go ahead and click over here to MurTech on Rumble. This is my Rumble channel. This is the video we're reviewing tonight, my episode 1792. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it. So let's click into this. Episode 1792. All right, let me pause that and close out the live chat and slide down here. I'm starting out a few minutes early because I've got a little extra information for you. Let me click the Show More button to expand the description box out. Okay, we have information from American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ, McWattersaffect, Vince Dow, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give. JTR75 just started following my channel. The Village's Girl just started following my channel. Hybrid Human just started following my channel, so thank you very much for following my channel, folks. I sincerely appreciate that. I hope you're watching and I hope you're enjoying the content. Okay, sliding down here, Ms. Flintstone 17 reposted my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1791. Uncloudy and Cottonball 31 commented on my episode 1791. Debbie BS commented on my episodes my extra 573A, 573B, 573C, and Debbie BS also, she must have had some catching up to do, commented on my extra 574A, 574B. Deb Rant from Australia, in her comment, wished everybody a Happy New Year. And Debbie BS commented on my extra 574C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments and reposting my videos. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I sincerely appreciate your support. So let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Now, okay. There we go. I did a double click on that, so it yelled at me. Okay, now, last night we talked a little bit about how this fraud taking place in Minnesota, the importance of the fraud is the fraud itself, not necessarily how they're betraying that it is Somalians that are doing it. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you break the law, it doesn't matter if you're French, if you're British, if you're Spanish, if you're Mexican, if you're Canadian, if you're American, if you're Somalian. It doesn't matter. You broke the freaking law. Okay? But it seems like the focus has been put on the Somalians did it. It doesn't matter. Whoever it is, they need to be held accountable. Now, here's a bonus for you, talking about from Fox News, federal probe into Minnesota's fraud far from over as 98 charged. Okay, there's been 98 people charged already. Okay, and you know, what I was talking about last night isn't necessarily that nothing's been done. It's just the focus has been taken off of the crime and put someplace else. But I wanted to share this with you to remind you, because we've talked about this before, that there is something being done about it. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this bonus here.
Homeland Security officials are on the ground in Minneapolis conducting a massive investigation into the multiple ongoing fraud schemes happening in the city. Attorney General Pam Bondi is warning lawmakers to buckle up as this investigation is far from over. The AG also announcing that officials have charged 98 individuals so far in this investigation, with 85 of those being of Somali descent. Who is next on the line in this heightened investigation? Well, joining me now to break it all down is president of the Oversight Project, Mike Howell. Mike, thanks for talking to us about this morning. Before we get into this, I want to run this sound. This is from the manager at one of the daycare centers denying the fraud allegations, kind of at the center of this. Listen to this.
A lot of the journalism that's been going on the last couple of days has been really dishonest. I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but I do feel like what was done was someone came to our building outside of operating hours. When there's a specific sign on our door that says our days and our hours. He came outside of those hours and then claimed, hey, they're closed and they're still making money. They're using taxpayer money to work. And it's like, you don't come outside of operational hours and then say they're using taxpayer money. That was completely false.
Mike, how well or not so well are those comments going to age?
I don't think too well. I mean, you saw the videos not only in Minneapolis, but they're popping up in cities across the country. I mean, it stands for what exactly it looks like. There's a bunch of daycare centers with no kids. There are autism programs that are being ripped off Medicaid dollars with no...
Okay, I want to stop here. Now, one of the things that was talked about, I'm going to back this up just a tad. Okay, they talked about in this building here how there were no windows, only this door, which that in itself is not really a problem. I mean, I was a foster parent, and I have a little bit of knowledge about how the Department of Child Services works here in Indiana, although I'm in Arkansas right now. It works in Indiana where I live. But a daycare center, there's not a problem with there being no windows in there, because it's nobody's business as far as having, taking care of children. It's nobody's business who's in there. They don't need to see who's in there because there are kids in there. And, as far as the Department of Child Services are concerned, they don't want some pervert walking down the street and seeing that there are a bunch of kids in there and start hanging out there to perhaps molest one of those children. The only people that need to be concerned who's in there are the parents. But in this particular situation here, Nick went there, the YouTuber, and filmed this, and there was nobody there at all. I mean, I don't recall. I could watch this video, his video, but I don't recall there being a sign on there, and there were definitely no cars in the parking lot. I just wanted to point that out, that because there are no windows in this building, that is not an issue in itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to this.
I mean, it stands for what exactly it looks like. There's a bunch of daycare centers with no kids. There are autism programs that are being ripped off Medicaid dollars with no autistic kids. This is part of the strategy of a broader left-wing immigration project paired with mass welfare, and we're seeing the most logical outcomes of that right now.
How far does this go down the pipe? You talk about all these other states and communities. I'm sure we're going to see more of this. I would bet my life on it, to be honest. But how far does this go down the pipe? Because, they're asking for Tim Walz to step down. Does he step down? Who's going to be held accountable? What does accountability look like in this?
Yeah, I think Tim Walz politically becomes more popular with Democrats. He's doing what he's there to do for them. This is their operating and governing strategy. You bring in third world migrants. You don't ask them to assimilate. Somehow by U.S. policy, we give them the right to vote over time. And you have a political constituency as a Democrat. It's your job to get them money by any means necessary, including waste, fraud, and abuse and programs with zero oversight. So Democrats, he's going to do just fine. But how far does this go? This is the broader national governing strategy. It's why Democrats support mass immigration, demand no assimilation, and protect ethnic enclaves from countries with, tribal issues and piracy as their chief economic output. They put them here for this reason. None of this is surprising, and it goes across the entire country. It's a governing strategy.
Yeah, Pam Bondi says this is just the tip of the iceberg. My question is, how was all of this missed? If this is just the tip of the iceberg, and this is already billions and billions of dollars just missing, how was this missed? Yet they still ask for more taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I think, frankly, Republicans failed to acknowledge how Democrats are truly operating, and many of them were scared for political correctness. You see, some Republicans very involved in the Somali caucus and, defending that ethnic enclave up there for a long period of time. But now they're being greeted with facts, and they're running to catch up. And so Republicans need to get serious about what the American people actually demand in an immigration policy to not allow this, and then not allow it to be rewarded with mass government welfare programs that are intended to be handled by the states and drive money to their preferred new political constituencies.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Republicans, because the Minnesota House and Senate Republicans released a joint statement. Quote, people in Minnesota have been watching the fraud crisis get worse and worse for years. It has gone on long enough. This is not about politics or stunts, and we do not make a call like this lightly. The office of the governor deserves respect. For the good of the state, Governor Walz should step aside. Minnesota needs accountability, a reset, and new leadership that can get us right back on the right track. What do you make of that statement? And do you think it's going to be that easy to just get us back on track?
Yeah, I think Walz obviously in a perfect world would be out of there. But again, I think his core constituency is going to applaud him and he'll be stronger with them. And over time, as mass migration continues, the moderate so-called centrists of the Democrat Party that statement's trying to appeal to are being replaced by the other constituencies. So it's all a numbers game, but he should be prosecuted by the federal government, as should everyone else involved for any potential criminal wrongdoing. And so maybe that's the most effective way to get him out of the governor's mansion.
Yeah, and if anyone missed it, I believe in the last couple of days, he called this white supremacy. So we'll see.
Yeah, he did. This is white supremacy, picking on those poor Somalians. But here again, I think the whole narrative has just been misplaced. It should not be about the ethnic people that are doing it, the ethnicity of the people that are doing it. It should be about the crime itself, not about the people. So, the thing is, we've heard a lot about, how nothing's happening and nothing's happening and nothing's happening. Let me go ahead and jump back here. And I did some chatting here with Jeanette, J66, Debbie BS, and Uncloudy. All giving me comments or chats, so thank you very much for that. Let me close this out. And let me slide down here and show you one more thing. I hope this link comes up. I asked this to Grok, Elon's AI expert. When was the first charges, should have been when were the first charges against 98 individuals associated with the Minnesota fraud? Okay, I narrowed it down as closely as I could, and the information that I got on that, okay, the 98 arrests, okay, more precisely, okay, there we go. The first charges against individuals associated with the Minnesota fraud schemes, primarily the $250 million feeding our future child nutrition program fraud, along with related autism therapy and housing stabilization fraud that contributed to the cumulative total of 98 charged individuals, were filed on September the 20th. On that date, federal prosecutors announced indictments against 47 individuals. Now, of course, with this Nick YouTuber that has gone out and made this video, and he's got a YouTube channel. He's also posted it on X. So a lot of people have been sharing this out because this is the first time a lot of people have heard about it. Now, we've been talking about this for, about a month and a half, but this was back in September 20th. Okay, September, October, November, December. It's been going on for over 3 months. Now, why this hasn't been publicized back in September, I don't know. Let me know, folks, in the chat or in the comments. When did you, if you can recall, when did you first hear about this? Was it back in September? Did I just totally miss out on this September of 2022? Okay, so this has been going on for, sorry if you hear some background noise. I'm at my sister-in-law's house, and her son's over here, and their kids are playing. But they don't have a soundproof studio, so I'm in the bedroom here doing this video. But at any rate, this has been going on for 3 years and 3 months. So here we go. It's just, and that's, interestingly enough, that was under the Biden administration when this started. So I don't know. It's just awful weird that since Donald Trump is president and they're carrying this forward, There, now that's a problem. Now that's a problem. Okay, let's get into the program here. I've wasted, been on about 15 minutes now. American Center for Law and Justice, CNN faces Supreme Court in major defamation case. There we go. Let's check this out.
The ACLJ is going to the Supreme Court. We filed the Supreme Court a huge new lawsuit that is going after, really, let's just say, reopening the idea that you don't get blanket essential immunity to say whatever you want, any lies you want to come up with, just because you're the news. Well, the ACLJ is representing a new client. This is Alan Dershowitz, who, again, this is going to be an interesting one. You've got Alan Dershowitz suing CNN with the ACLJ involved.
It goes to the heart of what is called the Sullivan decision, and that is a case that was decided back on March 9th of 1964 in the case New York Times v. Sullivan, which gave this higher protection to the media when it comes to defamation claims. The court found that you had to find actual malice by the individual, and it created almost an impossible standard for someone to address if they have been defamed. Now, what the ACLJ is doing here is kind of going to the court, because there are split decisions from appeals courts when it comes to where this could lie, and then also looking at the Sullivan decision to see if it needs to be re-examined altogether, since that was decided in 1964, and the landscape of media has changed quite a bit.
So much since the 60s. Obviously, when this was set in place, they had no idea what was coming, which would not only be 24-hour cable news, but then just around the corner from that would be the way they run social media and the way how mainstream news has certainly a big footprint in terms of getting messages out there in digital media. So I think it's time, whether you're actually for this or against this, and whether you like our stance in this or not, I think it is actually time for the court to weigh in and make some new adjustments to how this is being taken.
It's almost impenetrable. It really is impenetrable. If you're a public figure and the media attacks you, President Trump has seen this. It's basically, we tell clients, sorry, there's nothing really we can do. Now, what's interesting here is in Professor Dershowitz's case, which it's quite an honor for us to represent the leading constitutional law professor in American history. He was representing President Trump with me and Jordan at the Senate floor during the impeachment. And he made a statement of how the impeachment laws are supposed to work under the Constitution, what constitutes an impeachable offense. And CNN, after knowing exactly what he said, all their commentators went on, made up a thing called the Dershowitz Doctrine, which there is none, and said completely the opposite of what he said. They had the tape, the whole world saw it, and they continued this for a couple of days. They never retracted it. So Professor Dershowitz filed a lawsuit. The judge said that if there was ever a case of defamation, this was it. But the only thing standing in the way between Professor Dershowitz and justice is a Supreme Court opinion called New York Times versus Sullivan, which was in 1964, which gave media heightened protection. But the media landscape was totally different then. Now you have everybody's media. So what you've got is, as you mentioned, this impenetrable wall. We're challenging New York Times versus Sullivan. We also believe that the burdens that they place on plaintiffs is outrageous in these kind of cases. And let me take it a step further. It's not just, how does this impact CNN? This impacts everybody. Because as Logan, as you said, these are calls we get, including from the president all the way to Professor Dershowitz to other people. The attacks that come and nobody can take legal action. We're hoping to change that. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch have all questioned the law, saying it was created as a political decision, not a legal one. It's not rooted in the Constitution. And we have filed the petition for certiorari. It has been filed as of about 45 minutes ago. So we are now officially at the Supreme Court of the United States. And what I think is probably it is one of our biggest cases we've ever had. The implications are huge. And our ACLJ members and donors have made this possible. And it was a lot of legal work. I'm excited, very pleased with the product. The other side gets to respond, and we'll respond again. And we'll probably know end of the spring if they're going to take it or not. If they do, we will argue it next year. I'm optimistic. There are justices calling for this decision to be overturned. It's time, and we're optimistic, and I think we've got the perfect case for it.
What New York Times versus Sullivan seems to have done is put tip the scales in favor of the press to some degree, giving them an enhanced protection, while those that may be subject to not being able to address get a redress of their grievances by petitioning the government because the scales have been tipped for the press. Is that something that we're addressing here as well?
It's more than tipping the scale. It's pretty much eliminated the right to petition the government. By the way, the petition to government is not just a petition to Congress. That includes going to court because you can't win. The court here, the lower court, who ruled against Professor Dershowitz and said, we're ruling against Professor Dershowitz because New York Times versus Sullivan, even though they say, of course he didn't say what they said he said. Now, I mean, think about that for a moment. So the First Amendment is not a license for libel and slander.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. Now, if you followed me for any time at all, you know I've talked about this. How, yeah, okay, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, I get all that. But that you should not have the ability to be able to outright lie and mislead the public that's depending on the information that they're being given to them by whatever media organization it is. Now, you can have opinion pieces, and you could be wrong on some of those opinion pieces, but to outright lie and say something the opposite of what a person said, they said that they said, then that should not be allowed. And that's what ACLJ is fighting for, is to not allow the mainstream media, CNN, MS Now, to do. It's just blatantly lie about what someone did or said. Okay, I feel good about this. I hope that the Supreme Court actually pays attention to this and thinks, well, that's probably not right for a media company to just outright lie. Okay, let me jump over here and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. I am following the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okie dokie. Let's jump back here then to our description box and see what McWattersaffect has to say about Nancy Pelosi says Trump will pay the price in history. But the video says otherwise. Okay, let's check it out.
And that's what this is all about.
Secret Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm gonna punch him out. This is my
I
mom.
would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm gonna punch him out, I'm gonna go to jail, and I'm gonna be happy.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Isn't it interesting that she has to be led around by somebody holding her hand to keep her from falling? Because that's what's going on here. Just watch. I don't know if you caught it in the very beginning of this, but you'll see it here in just a few seconds.
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican
She's lying,
talking points
incidentally.
as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be showing you guys some videos, so stick with us, about Nancy Pelosi going on ABC stating that the history books will tell the truth about what happened on January 6th, and it will be blaming Trump for what happened that day.
Unfortunately for Nancy, we've got a couple videos of one of her speaking, which are going to make what she said apparent as a lie. We would very much appreciate if you would like, share, and subscribe.
Many highs as speaker. The darkest day must have been January 6th.
Absolutely.
And amazingly, your daughter Alexandra is with you.
She was there. She took her sons.
Yeah.
Because she wanted them to witness history.
That's not the reason she was there. She was there to do a documentary about January 6th, which I find interesting. She decided to do it on that day instead of actually going on some other day. She decided to go on a day that became a day of infamy.
Yeah, and I would suggest that being Nancy's daughter, she had a very good idea what was going to go down that day.
She took them when they were little babies to the day we passed the Affordable Care Act. And then this was going to be, you witness history, the certification of the Electoral College is a big deal. It's a historical occasion. So that's why she was there.
She was there, and she's always got a camera with her.
She always has a camera. That's a different story. It's almost attached to her.
The remarkable footage her daughter Alexandra captured featured in the 2022 HBO documentary, Pelosi in the House.
She is there right with you as you are whisked out of the Capitol. The leadership is being evacuated.
The documentary captures the intensity of the day.
There are people with guns trying to get into the House chamber.
Speaker Pelosi pleads with military leaders.
All right, first thing, the only ones with guns that was in the House chamber were the Capitol Police, and that's it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, in the previous clip, I noticed Nancy is drunk. She is slurring her words. So you can watch it back for yourself. She does it twice.
To send in the National Guard.
Just pretend for a moment it was the Pentagon or the White House.
What's going through your head when we see the pictures? We see the anguish. We see what's happening to the Capitol. What's going through your head?
Well, it was clear that the President of the United States had incited an insurrection. And we begged him to send the National Guard. Typical of him, he never represents the truth. He said, I was going to send it, but they didn't want it. Get out of here.
Right.
Even Mitch McCullough.
Look, the thing was, he was saying that her and Mayor Bowser had to actually ask for the National Guard and he would approve it. But they never asked for it.
That's right.
And not only that, he recommended it also, and so did several other people. I believe Chief Sutton recommended to have the National Guard there as well, on standby, just in case something happens. And Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of D.C. said no.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, Mayor Bowser and Nancy Pelosi, to my mind, had this plan. And look at Trump authorized up to 15,000 National Guard. Chief Sund, we played the video here before. He was on the phone minute by minute. He asked a dozen times in the 90 minutes, 2 hours of delay on the 6th. He asked for National Guard. The president had already okayed the allocation. So this falls squarely on Nancy Pelosi's shoulder. And that's why I'm shaking my head as we watch this, because she is lying through her teeth.
Well, the thing is, on January 6th, the day of, when he was asking for it, Chief Sutton, the person who stopped it was actually General Milley.
McConnell was on the phone with us saying, get them here right away.
Yeah.
But they never sent them. This was one of the sad things. January 6th was really sad of itself. But the sorrow of it also springs from the fact that this president is trying to rewrite history, have a different narrative of what happened that day. And what I saw that day was these people coming in. They were going to have a bullet in my F-word head, and they were going to hang a noose for the vice president of the United States. They had Confederate flags under Lincoln's dome, the dome that Lincoln built. They're in there, they're defecating on the floor, they're insulting the people who make the Capitol nice. And of course, they beat up the police. And he's trying to convince the American people, and his toadies that go along with him are subscribing to that. And that's why we just cannot let that happen. That's what happened that day was horrible. It was an assault on the Capitol, the symbol of democracy to the world. It was an assault on the...
Well, I'm sorry, but that Capitol building has already been extremely, extremely hurt by people like you and other people that go in there and not just defecate on it, like you said that supposedly these January 6 people did, but also use it to get rich and enrich themselves. That's a form of defecation as well, because that's not what that chamber is meant for. It's meant to actually create laws and help the American people, and that is not what you're doing. What you're doing there is trying to help yourself. And then you've seen these videos where people are actually having intercourse in there, and of course that's okay. But what happened during January 6th is not. And this right here is performative by her, and I'm surprised they could get her sober enough to do this interview.
Yeah, and I'm surprised she's saying what she's saying, because a lot of it can be proved to be false. And, you know, I'm reminded that January 6th, the only people that died were protesters. One, Ashley Babbitt, everyone knows what happened to her. And another woman was trampled in the crowd and not treated very, very well by police. So let's keep in perspective.
Okay, there we have it. There's a few minutes left in this. If you want to see the rest of it, you can click on the link in the description box. Let me jump over here and show you that this video does come from McWattersaffect. I am following the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Vince Dow has to say on FBI opens raids on Somali businesses after citizen journalist exposes shocking reality in Minnesota.
Receiving government funding and Medicaid, and it's like, gee, I really wonder what's going on there, given the fact that we've already seen indictments handed down on Somali-ran healthcare nonprofits, quote unquote, like this. We have daycare centers for children also receiving government funding once again that Nick Shirley shows up to. And first of all, curiously, on a weekday, there's not actually any children in the preschool / early education center. And secondly, if you could not make it any more obvious, even the word learning on the sign that says learning center is spelled incorrectly. And so, you know, as we've often brought up about the theme of some of these likely and alleged fraudsters, it so often has been the case that, you know, you're dealing with people that, if they are up to no good, do not seem to be exactly all that creative or smart of criminals, right? In every single one of these stories you hear, it's like, oh, it's very clear what they were up to, right? And yet for years, as I've so often mentioned, this allegedly went just unknown by Tim Walz and the Democrat-ran state government. I once again look at videos like this and say, there's no way that could be true. As we often know about wide-scale mafia or money laundering operations, no, it's usually the case that local authorities can tell what is going on. They're absolutely aware. It's simply the fact they're either allowing it to happen, or more likely in the case of the Minnesota Democrat State Party, which is widely wrought with corruption, are likely in on it. But if you still don't believe us, let us bring you what apparently Nick Shirley found here today, because some of these videos are just absolutely fantastic in all the wrong ways. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. And again, I say, if you are still kind of skeptical as to the situation we've been describing, oh no, surely that must all be right-wing propaganda, okay? Well, let's take a look at this quality leering center, allegedly a preschool in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and well, what's going on there?
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. If you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working. Midday, children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children, and this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelled the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
You cannot make that up. They can't even spell learning correctly. Or is that how it's pronounced in Somalian? I don't know. You tell me. Now, look, to be clear, before they try to sue me, I am not the judge. I'm not the court of law. I'm not even a police officer. And so I'm not necessarily trying to accuse this business of any wrongdoing. That's the job of investigators to prove. What I will say, however, is if we are to follow the pattern that already has been proven in court across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, that this seems to raise all the red flags of what we would hypothetically call a front business, which in money laundering is referring to a company, a restaurant, in this case, a nonprofit, that allegedly is set up for tax purposes to look like a legitimate business, but in reality, they're either just defrauding the government or using it as a pass-through entity in order to send criminal money through kind of like legitimate legal means, whatever it is. And in this case, you know, this is not an issue where the Chinese restaurant or something has like a backroom poker table, but it actually is still a restaurant, right? Again, like they don't exactly try to hide what they allegedly here might be up to. You don't even spell learning correctly. I mean, this building doesn't exactly look like what I would associate with a preschool, but okay, fine. And then there's no children inside, right? If you're going to be committing fraud, allegedly, at least kind of run a daycare, right? At least have a couple of children in there before you ask the government for millions of dollars. But I will repeat here, there does seem to be this attitude that, hey, this is very easy to do. Likely these alleged fraudsters believe they can get away with it. That's why they don't even necessarily try to hide their tracks, which I continue to say I believe is a strong indictment on Tim Walz and the actual Democrat state government as to why exactly their anti-fraud prevention measures have been so loose. Why is it that some of the very Somali businesses who got caught engaging in the fraud were bribing the campaign of people like Democrat Attorney General of the state, Keith Ellison? Gee, I don't know. But if you're still kind of skeptical as to what we're talking about here, take a look at what happens when Nick Shirley and friends here actually go into one of these alleged daycares for children. It's a pretty interesting scene in there, I gotta say.
Children here in your child care?
Which child care, ma'am? Is a lot of
Minnesota Child Care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
And where are you? Which department? That is harassment.
Oh, we are from ourselves.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look at this daycare center right here. No children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, over $2.6 million.
Yeah, well, very simple questions here, guys. Ironically, it's something that even a child could figure out. If it's a daycare for children, then where are the children? And if there's no children in the daycare, then why is it operating? And why is the government giving millions of dollars for quote unquote childcare that actually is not happening? Of course, you could try to reasonably make the counter argument that, well, why is a daycare obligated to let in a random person who wants to see the kids? I mean, maybe that was phrased poorly. Maybe they thought the guy was some type of predator. You know, that's certainly the excuse made by leftists like Hassan Piker. I'm a Hassan Piker. I shuck out the dog and go to a China. Is that, well, the daycare is not going to let you in anyway, even if it was legitimate. However, even if you want to make that point, okay, let's move on from the whole daycare situation then. And look now to the so-called Somali healthcare companies, because in this situation, Nick Shirley does something that is completely legitimate. And if we're an actual business, absolutely, this is a question that they should be ready to answer. He goes in there asking for rates. After all, if you're a healthcare company, then can I get coverage, right? Can I get healthcare? And again, I say the response here is very telling. They actually threatened to call the cops. This quote-unquote healthcare company threatens to call the cops on a potential customer who's simply asking for their business. Totally legitimate business, though, by the way.
A list of all of the healthcare companies. Loads of them right here. We want healthcare. Yes, we'd like to speak about getting healthcare here. No. Why can't I get healthcare here? No, wait. Warning, you are under video surveillance. No trespassing, security, armed. This is the strangest place I've ever been to get healthcare. Just a bunch of different places. Healthcare here, healthcare right here. Another healthcare company right here. There are 3 healthcare companies inside of this building right here in this room of 7C. Now we have another Helping Hands.
And that, by the way, is something we talked about. And even there's, again, been indictments brought forth on fraudsters like this, right? You register a bunch of places very lazily to the same address. No one's there. And then, okay, let's say, for instance, we don't do in-person registration. You have to call. You have to go online. Okay. But if these are legitimate businesses, that's not even explained. They're like, no. Go away from our health insurance place for asking for health insurance. It's so straightforward, right?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this there as well. I'm about halfway through this video. If you'd like to see more of it, I do have the link in the description box below. Okay, this video does come from Vince Dow. I've shared a lot from Nick Shirley, Nick the YouTuber, and there's probably going to be more, I'm sure. Now, you may have seen some of these. Some of these I haven't seen. I mean, there's just snippets here and there. You can go to his channel. In fact, let me say here that this video does come from Vince Dow. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, coming over here to Mertech.com. If you click on my video channels page right here, it'll take you to interesting video channels. And I do have Nick Shirley's link right here as a YouTube channel. So if you click on that, it'll take you right over there to Nick Shirley, and here's all the information. If you'd like to go to Mertech.com, the link to that is in the description box. So you can come over here, and all these channels are where I get my information to post on my webpage, Mertech.com, and also to provide you with information. I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos over here at Mertech.com, but I have over 170 different channels here on my interesting video channels page. Okay? So I'm trying to, as much as I can, give you as much information as I can so that you can have the truth rather than no-nonsense, rather than the lies and propaganda. I'm for no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. Okay, let's jump back here and wrap this up with some information from Wendy Bell. We are the media now. Okay, let's jump into this and see what she has to say. This is after her
Hey, if you're
first
new,
break.
hit the thumbs up button. Love to have you register your view here. We're at 173, with 11.6 watching right now. Let's go. We can hit 2.5. I'm going to go big. Go big. It's the thumbs up bubble underneath the video box. And if you like us, hit the button next to it, the follow button.
Gained almost 500 people yesterday.
That is amazing. I think people are just hungry for anything that doesn't suck. And duh, I'm a good person, so you're stuck with me, right? You know what's magic? And I think this is so neat when this happens. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. A day or two after Nick Shirley went on the ground in Minneapolis and knocked on all the doors of these daycare centers that don't exist, tried to enroll his alleged son, who doesn't exist, into these daycare centers that don't exist. The only thing that's real is our money paying for it, the fleecing of America yet again. All of a sudden now, where no kids were seen, not one piece of jungle gym equipment, nothing for a child to play on, buildings that are boarded up or blacked out windows, right? Exactly where I want my kid to be hanging out while I'm at work, not able to be available, right? All of a sudden, these children are getting like trucked into these daycare centers. Isn't that remarkable? People who've not seen any activity in months, if not years, if not ever. All of a sudden now, oh, look, here's mom and dad dropping off their 3-year-old. Right. Well, here's your story. New York Post, all over it. Remember the Minnesota daycare that had the misspelled learning? They called it Leering, right? The Quality Leering Center. Apparently, they're trucking in children after the viral fraud video, as people who work in the area were like, well, that's very curious. I've never seen kids go in there until today. Nothing to see here. You must be mistaken. The story now is the guy behind this Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis. He's like, oh, Nick Shirley came and knocked on our door outside of normal business hours. Oh, got it. That must be why. So now, yesterday, all of a sudden, well, look at the kids showing up. The Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis, a purported daycare flagged in a viral video designed to expose fraud, may have been bustling with kids Monday, but it's typically such a ghost town that it appeared closed, a local told the Post. The resident called the kiddies seen at the site Monday, few days after explosive footage called it out and suggested it was part of widespread state fraud. Highly unusual. Never seen kids go in there until today, the person said. The parking lot is empty all the time, and I was under the impression the place was permanently closed. Well, about that. Brings us to this woman. Her name is Tiki Brown. She is in charge of the Department of Children. She is the commissioner. This is a pretty big job. I would find it intriguing, as I do now, that I can get no details whatsoever from any kind of Minneapolis webpage that tells me how many inspectors are tasked with going to tour the 1,750 to 1,800 child daycare facilities in the state of Minnesota. How many people are doing it? When do they do it? Where are the records? Because this place sure as hell didn't pass. I want you to hear Tiki Brown. She says, hey, buck stops with me. I'm all over it.
We are aware of a video that's being circulated that has gained local and national attention about child care centers in Minnesota. While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns that the video raises about fraud very seriously. Each of the facilities mentioned in the video has been visited at least once in the last 6 months as part of our typical licensing process. And in fact, our staff are out in the community today to visit each of these sites again so that we can look into the concerns that were raised in the video. So I won't go into any detail about whether or not any of these have any open investigations. I will share that our team was notified that Quality Learning Center closed just over a week ago. And I believe the details that were given at that time were around space concerns. And that's what was shared.
Space concerns. Well, if you said that the Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis closed down about a week ago, well, that's kind of funny because that's where all the kids were getting dropped off yesterday. Monday's busy parking lot and the roughly 20 kids streaming in and out as a reporter from the New York Post staked out the site. Well, it was in stark contrast to a neighbor's description and YouTuber Nick Shirley's video showing what appeared to be a facility that wasn't in use at all. Guys, it had snowed. There were no tracks in the snow. Nobody was there. Come on. We all know what's going on. So, Tiki, what is it? Was the place closed a week ago due to space concerns? Or does nobody in your Department of Children, Youth, and Families actually stop by to check? Oh, they were all just visited within the last 6 months. It's my understanding that that particular site closed about a week ago. Well, I'm sorry, Tiki. That's the wrong answer. Ibrahim Ali, the son of the owner of the Childhood Leering or the Quality Leering Center, is apparently a little butthurt that anybody is kind of getting in the way. He said, you know what? He claimed to the Post on Monday that Nick Shirley's visit came before they opened for the day. Really? Do you go to a coffee shop at 11 p.m. and say, hey, they're not working? Ali argued to the Post. He also blamed a graphic designer for the now infamous typo on the site's sign. What would you have done, Brock, if you were the Quality Leering Center owner and somebody misspelled the word on your sign?
Okay, before Brock answers on that. So they got there to do their filming before the site opened for the day. Is that the excuse they're given? Because here in December, right around, when winter starts, the sun doesn't come up until like after 8 o'clock. Okay, I didn't check to see what time the sun came up in Minneapolis that day, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people that needed a daycare center to be open before 8 o'clock because there's a lot of people that have to be to work by 8 o'clock. And some people have to be to work by 7 o'clock. In fact, I believe normal business hours for a daycare center would be like from 6 to 6 or 7 to 6 anyway. And that would be before the sun comes up this time of year and after the sun goes down this time of year. Now, if that was in the summertime, you could kind of, I could see where that could possibly happen. But no, that doesn't work. This time of year, when the sun doesn't come up until 7:30 or 8 and goes down by 5 or 5:30, depending on where you live, okay? Sorry, doesn't work.
I wouldn't have put the sign up.
Well, then there's that, right? I don't know. Who is more corrupt? Who is playing the average person more? Who thinks you are dumb? Well, when we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, we're just getting warmed up. The mad scramble to save face amid monster fraud and deception. Tim Walz, he did to Minnesota what Joe Biden did to the border. Explain that next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Okay, let me get this up here. About the 36-minute mark, 36-minute mark after her bottom of the hour break. Okay, here we go.
I was like, Sam Joe, Zuri, and Julie Pace.
Mearsy? 2.
Oh, my God.
Here we go.
Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. Let me give you a little idea of what is coming up on the show. I really think you're going to enjoy one of our final segments. In hour number 3, another segment by Liz Collin from Alpha News. She is phenomenal. Look, we are the media now, ladies and gentlemen. Each one of you has all of the same skills and talents that one of the mainstream legacy media reporters or anchors has. And I can tell you because I was one for several decades, right? There might be some connections in a newsroom to get phones answered faster, but we are showing every single day the value of the curious American taxpayer, of the fed up American, pincushion. We're the piggy bank that finances everything. And so commonly I find I wouldn't have voted for that. I wouldn't have paid for that. I wouldn't have rushed during COVID under the guise of a once in a lifetime global pandemic. Stay home, stay calm, right? I wouldn't have been like, you know what we need to do? I've got a great idea. Let's go out and spend a crap ton of money we don't have. That sounds fabulous. But these idiots did. And now they're like, oh yeah, well, there's always some fraud and abuse. Did you guys hear that the Affordable Care Act has cost us upwards of $50 billion in fraud and billing issues and all sorts of other jazz? It's like, in what world Should the federal government ever be in charge of anything if we want it to succeed? Just look at your local postal service. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about this. The scramble to save face as Nick Shirley, a 23-year-old guy who was asking questions, exposed how incompetent not just Minnesotan lawmakers are, but a very absent AWOL media. Not interested in covering this, not interested in doing anything. They are so triggered and so reactionary to every move Donald Trump makes. There is no more time to, I don't know, have ingenuity, create your own storylines, go out and be curious, seek, hunt and peck, dig, expose. Remember how the media used to be? Well, that is we the people now. You and I are the new media. We have replaced the old people, the 60 Minutes, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. Look, I know your parents and grandparents might still read or watch those programs, but times are changing. Thank God. Here's this story. Minnesota's GOP now, state GOP, is not even mincing words. They're like, hey, Tim Walz, look, dude, it's been 6 years. You've sucked all 6. You give us empty rhetoric about, oh, it stops with me. I own this. I'll do something. You say that you created a task force or some other such nonsense. It's all the hamster wheel of suck with this guy. And now Minnesota Republicans are calling for Tim Walz to resign, flat out saying, you know what, dude, done. You're done. Story from Breitbart.com. Minnesota state Republicans have called for Governor Tim Walz to resign over billions of dollars in fraud. In fact, Minnesota State Senators Bill Leisky, Nathan Wessenberg, as well as Representatives Marge Fogelman, Drew Rourch, and Mike Weiner released a joint statement as reporters and government officials have uncovered untold fraud. I'm not so sure government officials is necessarily correct, but okay. Minnesotans have been watching the fraud crisis get worse and worse for years. This is the GOP to Tim Walz. It's gone on long enough. This isn't about politics or stunts, and we do not make a call like this lightly, but the office of the governor deserves respect. We've tried to give Governor Walz time to act. But leadership means nothing, means doing the right thing, even when it is difficult, which is why we're calling on Governor Walz to resign. We're talking about billions of dollars in fraud that should have gone to vulnerable Minnesotans. The red flags were everywhere, yet year after year, the fraud kept growing, and year after year, nothing changed. People in our districts raise the issue constantly. It is the number one issue we hear about. They want to know why nobody's being held accountable, right? True. They want to know when somebody's going to fix it. And they want to know why the governor isn't resigning. Well, what we are seeing from the governor is what non-feasance looks like. Interesting choice of words. When a governor fails to do what he's required to do, when he watches a crisis spiral out of control, does nothing to stop it, that is non-feasance. The governor had a duty to oversee his administration and protect these programs. He failed. There needs to be consequences. As I said yesterday, not tomorrow, not on Thursday, not next Friday, not by the midterms. Get it done, resign, move away, see you later, goodbye. For the good of the state, their letter to Tim Walz goes on. You should resign. You should step aside. Minnesota needs accountability, a reset, and new leadership that can get us back on the right track. The Republicans noted that Article 8, Section 6 of the Minnesota Constitution lists malfeasance as grounds for recalling executive officers. They said they're not currently launching a recall. They want him gone. It's the difference between a going away party and a go away party. Going away is like, keep in touch. Thanks for having me out for margaritas. I'll talk to you sometime soon, I hope. And a go away party is go away. Never come back. They're saying we're having a go away party for you, dude. I want you to hear MSNBC, now MS Now, Mara Gay. You guys remember that name. She's a hack on the New York Times editorial board. This is the woman who said when she saw flags, American flags on the back of pickup trucks, she felt threatened. Oh my gosh. It's just so patriotic. Ugh. Crazy whack jobbery here. Perfect guess for MSNBC as Jonathan Lemire is going to set up the story. Finally, MS Now is paying attention to this story. It's gone on long enough, and now they're like, well, dang it. All right, bring in that Mara check. She'll diffuse the situation. Well, she didn't. Here's the setup. Jonathan Lemire, the host, poo-pooing $9 billion in alleged fraud by saying that MAGA has glommed on to the rampant Minnesota fraud to distract from all of President Trump's failures. I'm not sure which ones those are, but let's listen in.
This week, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee expanded its investigation into the Medicaid fraud allegations there in Minnesota. That move coming days after the Assistant U.S. Attorney in Minnesota, who was appointed by President Trump this past summer, claimed widespread fraud across multiple state programs that could total more than $9 billion. Now, Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has very much disputed those figures. Earlier this month, he announced a new statewide fraud prevention program following scrutiny over fraud issues in the state. And Mara, this is a story that's really gained a lot of traction among conservative media members, among the MAGA folks online, including members of the Trump administration. Vice President J.D. Vance was posting about it the other day. There's a lot we don't know here just yet, but it gives off at least a sense, and we'll see where the facts take us. But at least we can safely say this. It seems like Republicans are eager to be talking about something else than a lot of the bad news surrounding the president right now.
I'm at a loss here. I don't recall the bad news. We are getting great numbers, economic numbers. We're having great success at the border. He's making progress with ending the war with Russia and Ukraine, right? I mean, where are we with what failure, what pressure, what problem, what Epstein? Are you out of your mind, Jonathan? And this isn't a MAGA thing that we're glomming onto. This is called theft. This is called the raping of the goodness of the American people. That's not a political thing. That's called an anti-American thing. We should rise as Americans, Jonathan, if you want to take off your liberal, communist, socialist, Marxist goggles. Now comes in the New York Times editorial, Babe Mara Gay. And this is how she's going to paint the scene. She says that the FBI and the DOJ investigation into rampant fraud, it's not really about getting ripped off, right? It's about politicization. Right.
Right. Well, sure. So these were funds that were meant to go to help feed hungry people during the COVID pandemic, to help keep people in their homes who were at risk of homelessness. So first of all, if there is fraud there, that should be fully investigated, no matter where it is, whether it's in a Democratic-led state, a Republican-led state. I mean, let's pull back. So absolutely, it should be investigated. The question is, why is this a priority in a different kind of way? The politicization of the DOJ and the FBI is undeniable.
Are you out of your mind? Yes, they are. Ladies and gentlemen, I say it all the time. There are some people who will not be saved. Mara, what's more important? Clawing back billions of dollars that are being stolen knowingly from us every year? That's been going on for at least a decade, which you're going to hear coming up in hour number 3. What's more important, that or trying to tarnish Donald Trump? Because if that's what you're seeing this as, girlfriend, you need an intervention. She continues, she says, whether the Somali people are involved in any way, apparently she's not been reading the news.
So whether they are reliable narrators is the big question. And this is what happens when you weaponize and politicize federal agencies that are not meant to be, politicized. And I think the American people are right to ask the question, well, can we trust you? And that's a sad thing to say as an American. Let's recall, too, that there's also other scandals in other states. For example, the Mississippi welfare scandal. And this is not unique to politics. Americans know that. But of course, the other factor here is that because it looks like the Somali population in Minnesota, the Somali immigrant population may have been involved in some way, those people are being scapegoated, and that community is being scapegoated in a way that certainly serves the far right. And so that's also something to keep an eye on, and that's inappropriate.
Oh, Maura, you ignorant. Boop. I mean, come on. If the Somalian community is involved in some way, pal. She said that MAGA is using the Somalian community as a scapegoat. Well, see, there's a difference between scapegoat and scammer. A scapegoat is a person, group, or entity unfairly blamed for problems, mistakes, or negative outcomes that are not their fault, often to deflect responsibility from the true cause. Yeah, that's not what's going on here, sweetness. A scammer, instead, is a person who deceives others to gain money, information, or advantages through fraud, confidence, tricks, or manipulation. Bing, 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 bing. Which one do you think is going on here, Mara, whatever the hell your name is? That is what you get if you happen to be unfortunate enough to have MSNBC pop up on your television screen. That is why 30% of this country, I say, won't be saved. Period. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, as Tom Emmer, demands answers from...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this. We will get into more of this during my daily news wrap-up. But let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I've given her a thumbs up. I'm following her channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. Let me share some information with you from Augusta Gold here, and then we'll move on.
Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is not something that's talked about often?
Our increased longevity in America means default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not suffice.
If you have over $100,000 in your retirement account, get instant access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Text SAFE to 35052 today.
Okay, let's jump back here, and I did copy the chats into a comment so that it will be permanent with this video, although I didn't copy any of the chats here from this last person, Melania Can't Stand Don, because I think that's just, one of those freaky people that just like to go in and disrupt the truth. One of the 30% that Wendy was talking about. But at any rate, let me remind you that these videos that I shared with you are videos that do come directly from the producer's channel. I've got the links to their videos here in the description box, along with the links to their channels. I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out, but this information that I did share with you are videos that I've posted over here on Murtec.com. Right here's the video from ACLJ Sekulow that I shared with you. Right down here's the video from Vince Dow that I shared with you. And the video from Wendy Bell that I shared with you. And McWattersaffect is right up here. Alright? So, I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. And the link to Murtec.com is in the description box. I would like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately I just don't have the time to do that. That's why I've put together my daily news wrap-up playlist, where I do have all kinds of great information. We're going to go on with the Wendy Bell video. I've got some more American Center for Law and Justice. DHS agents deploy to Minnesota fraud sites. Oh, that's nice. Black Conservative Perspective. Wendy Bell, we're going to have her radio, finish up with her radio program here. Also from Badlands Media, Barry Cunningham. I'm going to have some X22 report in here as well. So go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here about 11:30, and we'll get this going for you. Also, let me remind you that tomorrow I probably won't have any extras because I'll be on the road. We're leaving Aunt Sue's down here in Arkansas and going back up to Indianapolis, so we'll be on the road for about 8 hours. Well, it's normally an 8-hour trip, but with kids it's more like about 9 hours with potty breaks, so just to let you know. But I will be back with my daily news update, and again it'll be delayed because of travel time, so I'll probably do that about 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. But then after that, starting the first of the year, and I will be on here January 1st sharing news and information with you, we'll be going back to 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the daily news update and 9:30 for the daily news wrap-up. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for the time you spent with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.